Ladies and gentlemen, I have a thought on war, specifically on the wars of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century. World War I and World War II versus Iraq. Let's start off with that thought. Did we succeed in them compared to Iraq, World War I and II, because we had so many deaths, hundreds of thousands of deaths between the two wars, and I don't have the figures at my fingertips, but I believe it was 117,000 deaths in World War I for Americans, and 243 or something like that in World War II, but I'm not sure. So something like this, though, hundreds of thousands dead, compared to Vietnam. How many do we have dead in Vietnam? In 15 years, we had less than 40,000. I believe it's 38,000 killed. 15 years, 38,000 killed. We had 38,000 killed in certain battles in World War I and II. The D-Day landings, we lost 10,000 on Omaha Beach or whatever. I don't know which beach. We lost a lot of men in lots of places, you know. And those wars took altogether 7 years, World War I and II. Hundreds of thousands Americans killed. Vietnam, less than 50,000 American killed. Korea, less than, I think 52,000 Americans killed in Korea. Maybe it's 58,000, somewhere in there. Iraq, way under 50,000. No, way under. I think it might be under 20,000, even if you go clear back to the Gulf War invasion in 1990 and count clear up to 2010 and have a 20-year span of involvement there. Isn't that amazing? That we've been messing around in Iraq for that long and we're still not in control of the place, and we're never going to be, and we don't plan to be, and we're not trying to be. Isn't that crazy? What are we doing there? Why not take control of it like we did with Germany, Japan, and South Korea? Now, it looks like the reason is deaths. South Korea, we actually did pretty well there, only 50,000 killed, and we have the country of South Korea as a free people now. That looks like a better bet than the 40,000 near killed in Vietnam, and then we left it to a communist dictatorship. But World War I and II were extremely bloody. Maybe that's because they were against extremely powerful and organized states. There's a reason to say that. Although the not powerful and unorganized state of Vietnam was sure difficult to fight, wasn't it? That was just the way we fought it, right? So putting all these things aside, including deaths now. So you see, we just juggle stuff. Some wars end better, but they cost more lives. But other wars weren't fought well. Well, which side should we be on? What sort of warfare should we be for? Taking a country completely, wiping it out, and taking the survivors and setting them free, or trying to stop them from attacking us boldly, and just let that drag out generation after generation. Please don't attack us. Please don't lash out. Please don't behave badly. Please don't be bad. Here's my cat. Talking about being bad. Thank you. That cat is less cute and more belligerent, I think. So, do we want to have an attitude towards countries of please just behave yourselves, in the sense of internationally, you can do whatever you want to your people inside your borders? Or should we take the opinion, when we get into war, that we're going to wipe you out, your system failed, it brought you into conflict with us, that's fail, here's your new system, like we did with Germany and Japan and South Korea. Not so much that South Korea's system failed, but we did basically the same thing we did with Germany and Japan. I believe MacArthur might have been in charge of the Korean government structure as well. And put MacArthur in charge and see what happens, you know. So, what kind of let's fast forward 5 100 years. Now everybody says nobody will exist in 500 years. God will have came and gotten us all. But I think somebody will be here. There will be some humans around. Hopefully it won't be toasted by a large nuclear war. Let's assume that that's happened. 500 years from now, something's going to have to be dealt with. Britain, after all, if they would have thought 500 years ahead, which is impossible to do, so this is for philosophers only, but if British would have thought 500 years ahead, they would have only been thinking from 1500 years to today. I mean, these spans of time happen. In 500 years, what does America want the world's political stage to look at? Does it want it to look like? Does it want it to be full of places like Germany and Japan and South Korea that are filthy rich and military protectorates basically, and wouldn't threaten us, wouldn't think of wouldn't think of it? And we supply 90% of their navy and 70% of their army, and they have to buy all their weapons from us, and their armed forces are integrated with ours and subservient to ours. Or do we want the world to be full of places like Iraq and Iran, where it's a boiling cauldron and we're just trying to keep them from becoming too deadly at any given time, and not even trying very hard, really? Like we were doing with Germany in the 1930s, for example. We said we did the World War I thing, we're done, right? No, we weren't done. I don't think we're done today. I think we're going to have an enormous war with Iran. And I think the way that we're fighting in Iraq, this 20 years, and not very many deaths, I don't think it's a way to run the world. And if we don't run the world, someone will. Now, finally, I want to end sort of inconclusively by muddling the whole question, because I want to point out the massive technological differences between World War I and World War II and the Vietnam-Iraq wars, so that we have caused, in Vietnam, for example, we caused a great number of deaths, while we hardly lost anyone. So it doesn't necessarily mean we're not hitting as hard, does it? It just means that when we do hit hard, we then back away and let the people decide for themselves and let democracy work and all that garbage, instead of imposing a system that's right and true. We still are hitting hard. We hit so hard in Iraq, we basically did a flattening job on the country. We then would have shoved a constitution down their throats and said, from here on out, no one can discriminate in this way, that way, and then we would have opened up jails and courthouses and let people and policed the place with Marines like we did in Germany for 3 or 4 years after the end of World War II. There were Marines everywhere, and in fact today there are Marines everywhere. And if we got real comfy in a couple big bases there in Iraq and we said, okay, we take care of your army for the next 50 years, here's a 50-year contract for your military. Now, everybody go get a job in the oil fields or something. Earn a living. If anyone discriminates against you, report them. They'll end up in jail. We've got jails open. We'll bring the Marines. The Marines are the military police in Germany for years. And that's the way it would have to happen again. But we're not going to get there by, I mean, you know, in Germany, if they got shot at badly in a town, they'd pull back and shoot the place up as much as they could. Bring in the tanks, bring some howitzer fire from the back, level the damn thing. You don't get permission from somebody to hit that church. You don't say, you know, is this sacred ground to the Nazis? Is this going to offend Nazis if we attack it? No. You level the damn place, take it over, and put the people who are still alive in a situation where they can't hurt people, namely freedom. Freedom doesn't allow you to hurt others. Isn't that a wonderful concept? And Germany and Japan, we lost more killed, but they're much better situations, and I'd rather hand that to my grandkids. I'd rather hand large state-funded memorials, which are pretty tacky and lame. I'd rather the private system handle memorials, but once in a while the taxpayers can get together and build a Parthenon or whatever. The Vietnam memorial's not as good as for example, a taxpayer-funded Arlington Cemetery. I think that's a memorial that stands by itself, right? There's no reason that we can't